Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Explainer of Mysteries. That's what this channel is called. So, I'm going to explain some of my own mysteries. Now, obviously, there's going to be some parts that I may not go into detail about, but kind of, give a little update on my own personal mysteries. And I'm thinking that maybe, as weird as it sounds, I sound better when I'm tired. I'm not sure if it's because of the tone of my voice slowing down a bit or that my subconscious is closer to the surface. And in my personal chart, I have a lot of earth and water placements. So it would make sense to have a slower and deeper voice when my subconscious is closer to the surface. Makes sense, right? So for a personal mystery of mine, it's my story. After all, it's what a mystery is, right? My story. My stories. I am the explainer of my stories, not his story or her story. My story. So, with that being said, let's talk a little bit about my story of when I was around 4 years or so. And it was as I was meeting this, I'll just say a person. She was a woman, and I walked into her store. I remember it was right after I was roller skating around this little plumbing opening. It was like this manhole, and there was just a bunch of I don't know, like a bunch of wiring and stuff poking out of it. Must have been for some ground wiring or cables or whatever. This is way back in the 90s when, everything had to be done over the landline. But long story short, I was roller skating around there. I did, 10, 15 laps and didn't fall in, nothing, just kept doing the laps over and over again. And I remember going into a store, talking to this woman. I didn't even talk to her, I just walked in there and I just kind of bumped into her. She was sitting at her desk. And she had some jewelry there kind of hanging on the wall behind her. And she had almost like a long, kind of a dark grayish hair, deep brown eyes. I remember her eyes were like a deep, kind of like a bluish brown, not quite blue, not quite brown, almost like a translucent hazel, but yet it was quite a bit darker than the translucent hazel blue brown that I've seen of a few people that I've met much later on in my life, at least in my memory. She had that look to her. Her teeth were pretty good though, and she had some incense in there, even a little green light. It was a little lamp, and the glass for the lamp was green, very kind of almost like an absinthe green, synthy green. It's very, very nice. However, well, that kind of ended pretty quickly, and then I see her again, and again, and again. And then I think in about a year or so, I'm in this house. This part might be a bit, it's going to be a bit different for some of you. Unexpected, maybe. I was in this house. I think it was my mom's house, dad's house. And I walked into this bathroom, and it's very steamy in there. Very, very steamy. And I just remember this man appearing in front of me. He had a mustache, though. He was kind of hairy with the mustache. but then the mustache, the face just begins to blur, kind of like the blurring out of a face, when you're trying to hide someone's identity. It's kind of like that. It just starts blurring out. And fast forward a few years later, I come across a neighbor, and his daughter reminded me very much of the woman that I'd met aforementioned previously, a few years, a couple of years at this point, maybe 3 or 4 years at this point back. Kind of reminded me of her, but she was quite a bit younger, bit of a tanner complexion. She's much younger. She was, I think, 17 or 18, maybe even 19. Much younger, much more tan. The eyes were just like that. Even the same, almost. Now her dad, however, her dad was, well, different. And I remember I came by a few times, and he was always pretty nice to me. I never had much recollection of him, except for maybe, I think it was one time I came over, and I remember he had a mustache, and his eyes were just like that woman's too. Well, that's because he was her dad, of course. And his eyes were always also just like the woman that I had seen in the store all those years earlier, except even the shape of the eyes was kind of like that. The shape was much more pronounced, and he had a mustache. His face was very lean, very pale too, a bit pale. There's a lot of contrast. His eyes are very dark, and they're very, very deep and sunken in. And it's a bit of a mustache. That's all I remember. And he had a bit of a 5 o'clock shadow too. And every time I talk about these stories, I start to get amnesia. I start to question the exact details that I had. Because, before it was like I would kind of see these stories, and I would have, of course, memories and visions, but I would get some of the details and I'm not sure. But then as I start to talk about it, I start to question it. It's almost like it's like you start to experience the amnesia when you try to make something audible and conscious to the public, as if though your subconscious mind, even, or an entity, is trying to block you from saying it, mess with your memory. It's a good thing to think about. Well, that's it for my personal story of now. Take care, guys, and have a great July.